Hey guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, we're going to be learning Beethoven's Fifth, reimagined as a fifth of Beethoven, but more on that in a second. So first off, I have to give a big shout out to the band. First off to Evan for laying down an incredible ukulele performance, plus writing this arrangement for us to learn. And secondly, to Stephen and Sage for laying down the bass and drums and backing Evan up. So the guys did an amazing job on this tune. So let's talk about A Fifth of Beethoven. So this song adapts some of the most memorable melodies from Beethoven's Fifth Symphony into a more modernized form. Although modernize is relative. You see, this song came out in the 70s, and we have to think back to what was big in the 70s. And the biggest genre, arguably, was disco. But this song also has some funk groove, so a little bit of funk rhythms thrown in the mix too. The big takeaway here is that the feel and the groove and the vibe of the piece, that's what makes this tune. So when you think of Beethoven's Fifth, you think da 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 da, which sounds awesome, but it doesn't really make you get up out of your chair and dance. But when you think of A Fifth Beethoven, you think ba da 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 ba da 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 da, right? So what is he doing? Well, he's swinging the rhythm. Now, when we swing rhythm, most of the time we associate it with swung eighth notes, which is explained in this lesson. But for this tune, we're going to be swinging the 16th notes. It's the same concept, but a little bit trickier because it's applied to a rhythm that we typically don't associate swung with. And to make matters a little bit more confusing, sometimes you're going to revert back to a straight 16th note feel. Let me show you. Da 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 da. So you can hear the first half I sung as straight, and then I went back into that swung groove that makes you want to dance. So as we go through the lesson, I'm going to be pointing out where we jump between the fills. And the big takeaway of this right here is that I want to state that this arrangement is going to be geared for the advanced player. And as you're probably deducing from what I'm saying, it's because the fill is a little bit tricky to get down. And you have to have a good ear. So a good ear tells you when the fill changes from that swung to a straight fill. Now, I do want to touch on one other area that makes this tune more suitable for the advanced player, which is the rhythms that we're playing. Now, while a lot of this song is very catchy, it's going to help you out tremendously if you can not only sing that da 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 ba 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 da 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 da, but you can understand the rhythms that you're playing. E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and a E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and a. So if you can translate that rhythm into its rhythmic notation value, then that's going to help you play this tenfold. And we're going to be calling out rhythms as we go throughout this lesson too. So let's take a break on all this analysis of the song and let's talk about this lesson. Now, this song is actually really simple in its form. It's only 4 parts. We have an intro, theme 1, theme 2, and an outro. So in this video lesson, we're going to be learning the first half, so intro and theme 1. If you want to learn the second half of the tune, which is theme 2 and the outro, I'm going to be teaching that in the part 2 lesson, which is available if you click that link. Or you can go to the site, rockclass101.com, do a search for A Fifth of Beethoven. Now also on that page will be the tabs that you can print off to follow along with, plus the on-screen interactive tab viewer. Now this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tabs scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. Now also on that page are the backing tracks. So we're going to have this song in different speeds. So once you learn it, if you want to play along with the band, you'll be able to download the play along MP3s. Now I also want to go ahead and state that the tabs that are going to be on screen throughout this lesson are going to correlate to the tablature, which is titled Andrew's version. So if you're a premium member and you're printing out the tabs, make sure you print out Andrew's version. It's 95% the same as what Evan plays, but we will have a 100% note-for-note transcription of what Evan plays as well. So if you want to print that one out too, you're good to go. Now, this arrangement is for high G, so make sure you grab the high G ukulele. And the other thing I want to talk about is our right hand approach for finger picking. And it changes throughout this tune. So we're going to actually touch on that when we get to different sections in the tune. So starting off with our intro, we're actually going to be playing out of free time. So there's no set tempo that you need to play this at. Now, if we put up the first line of tab, you can see that we're going to be playing the iconic da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da. Right, so we already know what's coming up. It's not super hard to play, but the key thing here is how we're playing it. So if we were to just pick these notes, it doesn't really have much drive or energy to it. That's why if you go back and you watch what Evan does, he's essentially treating his index finger as if it was a pick. So you can see how I'm holding a pick. If I get rid of the pick and pretend I'm holding a pick, it looks like this, right? So my thumb is in the middle of my index finger. And my index finger, just the tip of it is sticking out. And so if I take the open A string, and I just alternate pick like that, down, up, down, up. Listen to the attack, it's very energized and abrupt, more so than the soft flesh sound that I get if I pluck it normally. So that's what Evan's doing. He's going to be playing this, pretending it's a pick attack. Now, I don't really like the pick attack for my own playing style, so I like to do something like this. I guess I can call it the flick strum approach. Essentially, I'm going to be using my thumb, the nail of my thumb, to flick up, and then I use the nail of my middle and ring to flick down. When I do that and I put it to the music, it has much more oomph than if I was to go. Right? So this whole first intro, you really want to think about the attack. We want it to be da-da-da-da. Right, we want it to have feel, we want it to have energy. And that's how Evan's achieving it using the picking method, and how I'm achieving it using the flick strum method. Okay, so try both of those, pick the one that's comfortable for you. And as far as playing this, it's very simple. We're just using our pinky finger for the 10th fret of string 1, and then go on to the 6th fret with our index. So we've got 3 hits on 10, then 1 hit on 6, and then we move down to the 8th fret with our pinky, 3 hits on 8, 1 hit on 5. Okay? But it's all the feel that's important. Okay? Now, as far as playing this intro, again, it's free time, so you can play it however you see fit. So if you want to go ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da, if you want to do something really drawn out, or you can go ba-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. You can do something a little bit quicker, faster. There's no right or wrong. So take this intro and make it your own. But it's pretty simple as far as what our left hand's doing. So put all of your practice time into the attack with your right hand. Okay? Now let's go ahead and look at our meat and potatoes. Let's jump into theme number 1. So theme number 1 is when the band kicks in. So if we look at the tab here, we've got the first few bars. Now that first measure 5 right here, we can consider that the pickup measure. So we're coming in on the tail end of B4. We're coming in on E and Da. And when we come in here, we're coming in with that swung rhythmic feel. Da 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 da. So that's what our first a couple of bars right here sound like. So we want our playing to reflect that swung rhythmic feel. So that's what it sounds like when we put it onto the ukulele. So let's break down and learn what's happening. So first off, start with your pinky on this 6th fretted string 1. And take note of what I'm doing. I'm doing the flick strum approach so I can get more oomph out of my notes. So the key thing here is we start on E and A for beat 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, E and A. Okay? Now going into measure 6. We're just going to do a down strum on a C5. So very simple chord, just do a partial bar laying flat on the 3rd fret, strings 1 and 2. Strings above are open. Then if you take a look at what happens next, we're going to be playing double stops, which is fancy terminology that just means 2 notes at once. But our double stop is literally bouncing between the middle finger on the 3rd fret of string 2 and the open A. Keep the middle finger planted. Then drop your index finger down to the 1st fret of string 1 and pluck those 2 strings again. So you have up, down, up, down. So that's all that's happening. So if we tie it in, we have strum. Okay, so strum, up, down, up, down. Rhythmically, it's really simple. 1 and 2 and 3. Okay? Now the tail end of this is a little bit tricky because there's quite a lot happening with our left hand. Here's what it looks and sounds like. Okay, one more time. Let's break down what's happening here. So start with the index up. We're going to do a hammer on. Come down with a slap, pluck. Then hit string 4 open. Then you're going to move this hand up. So lift up, move this hand up and touch the 1st string to give me a muted pluck, just the 1st string. But as I'm moving up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead with my middle finger till it meets the 5th fret of string 3. Okay? Because if you look at the next measure, you can see that's the 1st hit. So, in the context of this, it sounds and looks like that. Slowing it down. Hammer, slap, pluck, 4, move up, muted pluck, middle finger reaches 5 on string 3. That's a lot, right? So, what you want to do is you really just want to go literally just loop it like that over and over again to get the motion and the sound down. It's tricky. It's really, really tricky. If we think of it rhythmically, we have 1 and 2 and 3 and da, E and da. So we have 1 and 2 and 3 and da, E and da. So tricky, tricky stuff, right? So it's This little ending of measure 6 was one area that took a ton of practice. So you can backtrack this video. I played it like 4 or 5 times in a row. You can just loop it with me right there. But if you're feeling good, what I would suggest is to just practice the pickup going into in measure 6 in its entirety to get this down. That's going to be the easiest way to play it. Okay, let's see if we can try together. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, really tricky things. But here's the beauty. If you get it down, then these next few measures, they all use the exact same rhythm. So it's literally copy and paste. But if you look at measure 7, you can see we're just playing out of a different chord. So instead of playing out of this C minor, or in the context of the 1st hit C5, we're going to be playing out of an F for this next measure. Okay, so take your middle finger, put it on that 5th fret. Remember, we were leading to that note, right? So middle finger is the 5th fret of string 3, index is the 3rd fret of string 2. So just pluck both of those And if you look ahead, you notice that we're going to be alternating between the 5-3 and 5-5. So just take your ring finger, put it under your middle finger, so you've got double 5. So if you look at this measure, you see we start with string 3 by itself, then we do double stop, 5-3, then put the ring down, lift up, and back down. So really that simple, right? So 1 and 2 and 3. Now the tail end of it, we're going to hammer on, do a slap, and then go back to 6 with your pinky and give me 3 hits. It sounds like that. Again, if we put it into the context, 1 and 2 and 3 and E and sounds like that. Let's see if we can try that measure together. It's not as hard as the previous one. So we looped it a few times, right? I think that may be the approach we do for a lot of these measures, just to kind of really get it ingrained, get that groove ingrained in our membrane, so to speak. But if we put that entire 5, 6, and 7 together, that's what we get so far. Really, really cool stuff. Now here's the beauty. If we look at the next couple measures, so we'll put up measure number 8 and 9 right here. Go ahead and take a look. You're going to notice something. Measure 8, identical to measure 6, 100%. Take a look at measure 9. The first 3/4 of it, beat 1, 2, and 3, identical to measure 7, 100%. But the tail end of it, beat 4, something changes, right? So we have a little variation, and the key thing here in the change is that the variation takes us into straight 16th note rhythm. So let's play these 3 notes, and then we'll talk about the feel changing as we look at measure 10 and 11. So I want you guys to go ahead and just lay flat on the 3rd fret strings 1, 2, and 3 with the index, and just give me 3 hits on the 2nd string. Now, as we put up the next 2 lines of tab, we can see that we're playing out of C minor, which is the chord we just fretted, right? So keep in mind those first 3 hits that we just played, and I'm going to play up to beat 3 in measure 10. Da 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 da. So you can hear we're not going da 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 da. We're not swinging it at all. We're changing the feel to straight, and that's what makes this song a little bit tricky. Sometimes you're gonna have that happen where you're gonna change the feel to straight, and then you're gonna go back into the swung feel. And spoiler alert, the second half of this measure goes back into that swung feel. But before we get there, let's learn what we're playing for the first half. So barring across, remember the previous measure we had 3 hits on the string 2. Then we're going to go ahead and do 1 hit on string 3, then 3 hits on string 1, 1 hit on string 2, then take the pinky, put it on 6th fret, 3 hits. Lift the pinky up, 1 hit on 3rd fret string 1. So that bar happens the entire way through, so keep it barred. Now, as far as my right hand approach, what I'm doing this time around is I'm mixing piccato picking, which is a fancy terminology that means alternate picking. So anytime I have those 3 notes in a row, I'm piccato picking. When I have a regular note, like the first note of this measure, I'm just going to use my thumb. Okay, then piccato, thumb, then piccato. And since I'm at the first string, I'm just going to follow up with the index finger instead of moving my thumb. Generally, if I use my thumb mixed with piccato, I tend to use the thumb for notes on 4, 3, and 2. Hardly ever on 1. Okay, so as far as playing it, it's not super hard. Key thing again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, is go to the straight fill. Okay, now if we look at the next half of this measure, we're going back into the swung fill. So let me do this. Let me play straight into swung. So it's tricky because we have to go back into that groove, okay? So keep that in mind as you're working on the second half going into the next measure, measure 11. So you're going to go ahead and start with the bar intact, and you're going to play string 1, right? We're going to kick off where we left off, which is just the first string, 3rd fret by itself. So that's going to be beat 3, and then we're going to have and da, e and da. So remember, and da, e and da. That's the same ending that we saw for those previous bars, right? So we know the rhythm already, but we're just playing different stuff with our left hand. Same rhythm, but playing something a little bit different with our left hand. So ba da da da. Get that stuck in the head. Okay, so for this one, just play string 1, 3rd fret, that's beat 3, then open G, then double stop, strings 1 and 2, come down with a slap, double stop, 1 and 2, back to G, 1 and 2. So 3 and da, E and da, 3 and da, E and da, 3 and da, E and da. Now, breaking it in half, starting at that beat 3, I think is a little bit confusing. So if you go back, it makes more sense hearing it in its context. So if we go back, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, going into measure 11, it's going to sound like this. So notice beat 1, 2, and 3, swung, beat 4, back to straight. Okay? Starting at the very beginning though, still out of that bar chord. Take the first half. We have 3 by itself, double stop, come down with the slap, pluck, the double stop, back to the G. So 1 and E end. Pretty simple for that first part. Look at beat 3. It's got a squiggly little arrow, right? This is where we're just going to do a little accented strum. So a little raschiato hit, just to give it a little color and flavor. Now, if you're new to doing these kind of sweep strums, they're also called that, then I would encourage you to check out our lesson, which is called La Gitanita. If I have a card, I'll put it up here. If I don't, the link will be in the description box below. It's a flamenco tune that teaches you how to do this little barrel roll strum. Plus, it also teaches you the piccato picking technique that we talked about just a little bit ago. But I'm going to do this hit with a little sweep strum, raschiato strum, just to give it a bit of color. And then to finish it up, you can see string 4, double stop, come down with a slap, and we're back to that straight fill on the 3rd fret, 2nd string for da da da, okay? So here's the key thing. Let's look at just the first 3 beats before we tackle beat 4, which goes back into the straight fill. So it sounds like that one more time. So let's see if we can try that together. 3, 4. Nice. Now, if we backtrack to the beginning of 10 and let's add those few little pickup bars, it makes a lot more sense when we hear everything in the context. Okay? So I would practice this once you get comfortable with it as a whole. So those two bars together, plus that little pickup. Now, looking at the tail end of measure 11, beat 4, we're actually going to be changing fingers as we go into measure 12. So when you get to beat 4 in measure 11, instead of keeping the bar chord intact, just take your middle finger, put it on the 3rd fret of string 2. And it's the same thing we did before. So we have a slap and then 3 hits, and play it straight. Now as we go into measure 12 and 13, you can see that we're going to be playing out of a G chord instead of C minor. So that's what that measure sounds like. Same thing, so it's essentially the same as what we did for 10 and 11. It was just out of C minor. But for 12 and 13, we're playing out of G. It's the same rhythms and the same fill. So you're starting those melodic runs playing straight, and then you're vamping on the chord with the swung rhythm, right? So straight, back to swung. So that's the key thing that you want to memorize. If you've got the fill down, everything else rhythmically is the same. So remember, we started the end of the previous bar with our middle finger on the 3rd fret of string 2. Then we're going to start with our index here on the 2nd fret of string 3. Play that once, then take the ring, put it on the 4th fret of string 2 3 times. And here's where it's a little confusing. You're going to go to the 1st fret of string 2 with your index, and you can see a little dash, right? This is a little slide. The melody note is really the 3rd fret, but when you're playing fast, you're not going to go precisely. You're just going to play the 1st fret and slide up and fade out. So as I slide up, I'm basically lifting pressure up at the 3rd fret, and when I do that, you can hear it's almost like a whoop, whoop, like a fade out effect, right? So you hear that? Whoop. So you're not sliding precisely to note and ending there. You're instead sliding, lifting pressure up about there, and it creates a fade effect. Really, really cool. Really tricky. Little subtle things like that is what makes great players really shine. Okay, that one was a little rough. That one was better. So you just want to practice that. It's just hard. It's weird. It's not something we do often. Now, when you slide up, you're going to lead with the pinky finger up to the 8th fret on string 1. And as you guessed, 3 hits there. And then end on the 5th fret with your index on string 1. So sounds and looks like that when you get it down. Just one of those things that you're going to have to practice. So hit pause and just work on that one on your own. But if you look at the chord that we're playing out of, it's a G chord, probably a shape we've played a lot. Now, this one, we're doing exactly the same as we did for the tail end of 10 plus 11. So the same rhythms, the same hits, all that stuff is basically identical. So if I play from beat 3, sounds like that. It's the exact same right hand, exact same rhythm. But we're just playing out of G instead of the C minor. So you know what to do with the right hand, you know what to do with the rhythm. So what you want to do is you just want to practice it in its entirety. Okay? If you look at measure 13, it's exact same hits. The only thing that's different from 11 was that the first hit is the open G. But the rest of it is identical. So we have 1 and 2 E and 3 and da. Okay? So again, you know how to play all of this stuff. You're just playing out of different shapes. So it sounds really, really cool. So let's see if we can loop that. We're going to start on the tail end of 11, and I'm just going to repeat it, and you come in with me. Nice. Now if we look at the tail end of 13, there we go. We have a little bit of a different melody. So let me play this ending going into the next couple measures. It sounds like this. That's what's coming up. Really, really cool melodically. So for this one, we're just going to go 10, 10, 8. So I'm using pinky to middle, and I'm doing my flick strum approach. Now as we go into measure 14 and 15, take note, first off, measure 15, if you skip ahead, it's in 2-4. Keep that in mind. So our first chord we're playing out of is a C minor. So for this hit, we want our middle on 8, string 2, index 6 on string 1. Strum that, give me open 4, and then lay flat with your index on 7, strings 3, 2, and we can bar across 1, but I want you to slightly lift your index finger up, so string 1 is muted. So when you strum down on this, you can hear the string 4, that's fine, but you really want to highlight string 3 and 2. So we want to hear, but not string 1. This is one of the hardest hits in the song. Okay? Because the melody note is those two strings. Really, really string 2. Right? So if we bar across all and we hear string 1, it just doesn't sound right. So the trick again, apply pressure. You can see at that first joint to string 3 and 2. Lift your finger up so string 1 is muted, don't push down. And when you do your strum attack, try to target 3 and 2. If you hit the open G, not a big deal because those are the same note, a unison note. And you can tell it's the same thing 2 times in a row. So if you've got it once, you've got it twice. So remember previously we had 10, 10, 8, then we go into the C minor, 8 and 6, strum 4, strum 3 and 2, although if you hit string 1, it's muted, so it doesn't matter. Okay? So ba da 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 doom ba ba da 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 doom ba, E and a 1 and 2, E and a 3 and 4. Okay? So a little tricky, again, something that you just want to practice. Now look at the end of beat 4. You're doing the same thing again, 10, 10, 8, and if you go into 15, same C minor to an A flat major 7, which looks like the G chord. It is the G chord, just move it up a half step. Then hit the open G, and we're going to go into our next chord. So let's put up the next tab right here, which is a G2. So lay flat on 7, 1, 2, and 3, add your pinky to 10, string 1. Okay? Keep this chord in mind. So we have, if we backtrack, okay? So let's see if we can try that together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so arguably I'd say this is a lot easier to play than some of the stuff we've encountered recently. All right, now, as we go into measure 16 and 17, this is a very syncopated measure. If we look at the rhythms, and I'm going to add the rhythms to the screen right here, we have 1 and E end, 3 E, 4 E end. Of course, that makes no sense if we don't do it in time, right? 1 and E end, 3 E, 4 E end, 1 and E end, 3 E, 4 E end. That's a lot. If we play it, sounds like that. So, ba da 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 da. You want to just get that memorized. And I would say just try to aim for the ballpark of getting the rhythm down. You know, don't worry about being 100% precise, because what you really should do with this tune is to use the tab player and play along with Evan, right? Play along with Evan either by himself or with the band, right? Because that will really enforce the groove and give you a guide to play along with. So we're starting out of the G chord that we left off with, or we ended with. And we're just literally bouncing between an open G note, and then we're doing double stops that just walk up chromatically by half step. Okay, so give me a strum, hit the open G, then take your ring and your middle finger, put it on the 9th and the 8th fret. Notice that I'm keeping the other fingers down for now, because it creates a nice sustain. Hit the open G, lift these two fingers up, move the other two half step up, pluck them, give me open G, move up a half, pluck. That sounds better. So it's not super hard what your left hand's doing, but the rhythm is a little bit tricky. So just aim for the ballpark of. Okay, so ba do da do da 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 da. Just aim for the ballpark of that for right now. So to finish up, you can see that we're going to add a slap and then double stop to open G. Okay, so hit pause. I want you just to work on that ba da 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 ba. Just work on that one on your own, and then if you've got it down, if you look at measure 17, it's the exact same thing. We're just playing out of a different G and walking it up. So we're playing out of the basic G here. So give me a strum, hit the open G, then we're going to go to 5 and 3 with ring and index finger. Pluck that, open G, half step up, open G, half step up. Okay, so it's the same rhythm. 1 and da, E and 3 E. So you have 1 and da, E and 3 E. Ba da 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 da. Okay, so just try your best right now. This is probably the most syncopated we're going to get. And I think it's a little bit hard just because of the movement too. Ba da 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 ba da ba 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 ba. So try and get that in your head. And of course, again, just aim for the ballpark for right now. Okay, so if you can get it sounded somewhere like that, that's perfect for right now. You can tighten it up when you practice with the on-screen tab viewer. Now going into the next part, we're going to be adding our same 3 little hits, but this time around on the 11th fret. Okay, so when you get done with the G down here, right, we're just going to add a slap and then finish it up with 3 hits on the 11th. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and just backtrack a little bit so we can kind of hear what's happening. So that gives you a little bit of a gist of everything put together. It's a little bit tricky trying to play in time. So again, I don't want to sound like a broken record. I would definitely say practice with the on-screen tab viewer for this part. Now, the ending of this takes us into a funk groove, which is super fun to do. So if you look at the tail end, we're doing the same stuff as before, slap, followed by 3 hits with that flick strum approach. So it's 3 hits on the 11th fret of string 1. okay? And then we're gonna go ahead and bar flat on the 8th fret, strings 1, 2, and 3. This is an F minor chord. So for this part right here, and if you look at these two measures, we're literally doing a funk strum pattern, okay? So if we look at the rhythm, just for the first bar right here, this is measure 18, we have 1, 2, and a, e, a, 4, e, and a 1, 2, and a, e, a, 4, e, and a 1, 2, and a, e, a, 4, e, and a 1, 2, and a, e, a, 4, e, and a 1, 2, and a, e, a, 4, e, and a 1, 2, and a, e, a, 4, e, and a. So you want to get that down first, and you can even sing it ba da 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 da. Okay, so take just the 8th fret, string 1. You can do a strum just on the 1st string. Just to get that rhythm down. Da ba 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 ba. So you want to get that stuck in your head first. Now, the thing with 16th note strumming, remember that you strum down if it's a 1, 2, 3, 4. You strum down if it's an end. You strum up if it's an E or an A. So even though this tab has the down and the ups labeled out for you, if you understand the rhythm that you're playing, you know intrinsically whether to go down or up, because again, you strum down on the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, you strum down on the ends, you strum up on the E's, up on the A's. 1, 2, and a, E, a, 4, E, and a, 1, 2, and a, E, a, 4, E, and a. Okay? So at this point you're playing, that should be ingrained and it should be automatic, right? So you shouldn't need arrows or anything. So again, if you're not there yet, that's something that you just want to work on. And taking any of these rhythmic funk strum patterns is a great way to work on that. So if we look at the actual playing of it, just bar flat on the 8th fret, down, 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 up. So you have strum, strum, mute, up. Okay, so that's the first half. 1, 2, and a. Okay, we're gonna rest on 3, come up on E, and then on A, we have another up, but it's muted. So building it sounds like that. So ba, ba, ch, da, da, ch. Okay, so hit pause if you need to. Just get that down. Looking at the last half, down, up, mute, mute. Okay? So slow. Okay, so these things, they're really, really tough to kind of break down and explain. It's something that you really just need to feel and to be able to look at those rhythms and be able to translate that rhythm onto the instrument. As you look at measure 19, it's just literally the exact same for beats 1, 2, and 3. So you're doing exactly the same, but on beat 4, you're adding that little pickup, right? So slap, ba, ba, ba. So putting this one together, it's going to sound like this. Okay, so just one that you want to practice. And to be honest too, this funk strum pattern that you're playing, it can be any variation of a funk strum pattern, as long as it fits within these 2 bars. So you can really do anything. You know, there's no set funk strum pattern that you have to do. So I want to throw that out too. So if you've got one in the back of pocket that you love, any kind of funk rhythm, you can fit it. If it fits in here, go ahead and use that too. Now, as we look at the next couple bars, we're going to be doing a really cool diminished walk down. Okay, so that's what it's going to sound like. And take note, it's got that swung feel. Okay, so we're not playing it straight. We've got that swung feel. So remember, you left off with 3 hits. So if we look at the first hit for 20, we're back to, we have a new part. We have 7 and 8. which is just playing a partial diminished chord right here. So index and middle finger. So give me a down strum. Then I'm going to piccato pick 10th fret 3 times. 7, my index is already there once. Down to 4, same string. Down to 3. Okay, so you have, but we want to swing it. Okay, remember the first few notes from the previous bar? So you just want to hit pause, get that down. Okay, and if you've got that down, if you look at the tail end of 20 going into 21, it's just the same thing. So you're just going to do it 2 times in a row. Then you're going to come down and go into a new part of the music. But before we get there, let's see if we can just loop that a few times. Okay, so that one's pretty easy compared to that funk strum pattern and some of the other stuff we've tackled. Now looking at the end of measure 21. We're going into this really cool sounding musical part. So you're coming down with the slap, and you're essentially going to be playing, you know, the E minor chord shape? Move it up a half step, becomes an F minor. So we're going to be playing out of this shape right here. But we're starting with slap, 4, 4, 3. Then we put up the tap for the next 2 bars. Add the ring finger, so you've got that staircase minor shape. You're going to go strum, 4 pluck, and then slap. Strum, 4 pluck, slap. Then take the index, go down to the 2nd fret. Give me 2, 2 to 5. And maybe, if you want, you can do that pluck or flick strum, just to give it a little bit more exaggeration on that melody note. Okay, keep the ring finger where it's at. Lay your index flat on the 3rd fret, strings 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to do pull off, 4, double stop the bottom strings. So if we tie that together, that's what we end up with. Let's try it on a loop. So not too hard, right? Looking at the tail end of this measure. So we're going to go 3, 3, 6. Okay? And then it's going to go into a really challenging section. Let me show you guys, okay? I'm going to play from what we've learned up to the end of this kind of section. This one took forever to get down. It's very challenging to play. Looking where we left off, we have 3, 3, 6. That's simple. Keep your pinky where it's at. And I want you to add your middle to 5 on string 3, index to 4 on string 2. So you're going to give me a down strum and then pull off to the ring finger. So you've got 5, 4, 5. That's our ending chord, D diminished. Okay? After that, hit the open G. Move this shape up a whole step. Put the pinky back down. And you're going to do the same thing. Strum, pull off, open G. So at least that makes it easy. It's uniform. So, starting from... Okay, rhythmically, it's actually really simple. 1 E end, 2 E end. E end, a 1 E end, 2 E end. So rhythmically, it's simple, but it's what makes it hard is what your left hand's doing. All right, so you just want to hit pause. You want to practice this. This just takes a lot of time. It took me forever. Okay, going up into our next chord, lead with your ring finger to the 10th fret. Lay your index flat on the 8th. we can strum down. If you hit the open G, it's fine, doesn't really matter. If you want to target the bottom 3 strings, that's fine as well. But same thing, strum down, do a pull off to the 8th. So it's back to that F minor that we played just a while ago. Come down with the slap, and lead with your pinky again to the 11th. Now, before we go any further, let's recap. Okay, and again. So I know a lot of this isn't a play along. A lot of this is kind of me showcasing what to do. And the reason why is that, obviously, if you made it this far in the lesson, a lot of this song is very, very hard. A lot of it requires a ton of practice time on your own to get down. So, teaching you where to put your fingers and saying and the rhythms and saying let's try together isn't probably the most realistic thing, because you've got to put in a ton of legwork to get it down. I know, because I had to learn it to teach you guys. This song took a lot of work, and it goes back to what I said in the intro. I think it's hard a lot of the times too because of that rhythmic fill, right? That playful melody. But when you add crazy fingerings like what's happening here, it gets doubly so hard. So again, I'm going to showcase. Now, with our pinky on 11th, we're going back into that same chord shape, but this time we're at 10, 9, and 11. And you can guess we're going to do the same hit, but this time around we're going to go strum and then 10 by itself. So instead of doing a pull-off, we're going to accent both melody notes. And the reason why is just because it's really, really tough to grab these frets right here and do a pull off, and it's easier just to attack each note. Okay? But here's what's tricky. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and a 4 E and a. Wow, rhythmically, look at the last half. 3 E and a 4 E and a. This rhythm tricked my brain so much when I listened to Evan play it. Because it's kind of broken up for the first half, right, going into the next measure, which isn't on the screen here. It's like broken up for the first half and then straight forward 16ths through the rest half, right? So it's just really, really confusing passage to play, because rhythmically it's just challenging. Okay? So you just want to just get that stuck in your head. So if we backtrack to where our pinky was on 11, and we've got the next chord shape intact, this C7, we're going to go up, strum, 10, slap, 13. You can see I'm doing the flick strum approach for everything. So that's the ending of it. If I backtrack, so it's one that you just want to practice a lot. Go really, really slow. And one thing that you can do to make it easier to memorize is that's shape 1, same shape. That one's different. That one's back to shape 1. So you really only have 2 shapes that you're working out of. Okay? So take this one nice and slow, and don't beat yourself up. It takes a lot of work to get down. If we look at the next measure to finish up this phrase, it's just going to be single notes. So thankfully it's easier. But it's pretty high up the neck. So you can see the first hit is 13, 11, 11, 15, slap. And then you're back into kind of a basic funk pattern. So finishing up, I'm going to do that same flick strum approach just for those notes. Okay, and for the ending. The other thing you want to note too is that we're playing out a 2-4. for that part. So if I backtrack, let's get rid of this tab, everything together. Sounds and looks like that. So it's very, very, very hard to play. But again, if you use little tricks like I mentioned, shape 1, shape 2, shape 1, that's going to make it easier to memorize. And then keep in mind broken rhythm, ba-da-da, ba-da-da, then we have solid rhythm for the rest of it, okay? Now, going into something a little bit easier is going to be kind of the tail end of this first theme. It's going to sound like this. So back to a funk strum pattern, playing out of a couple chords. Let's go ahead and break it down. It's not super duper hard to play compared to what we just conquered. So if we go back to the tail end of measure 24, we're back to 3 hits on 6, then to a C5 chord. Now this rhythm that we're playing out of, it's the exact same as what we had done for the previous funk strum pattern. So 1, 2, and 4 E and and I believe the hits are identical as well. Yes, they are. So you should know this strum pattern already. Okay, so that's it on a loop a few times for you to practice with. Going into the next measure, we're going to play out of an F. So take the middle finger, put it on the 5th fret, string 3, rings underneath it, 5th fret, and then index is on the 3rd fret. If you hit the open G as well, it's fine, doesn't really matter too much. But our strum pattern is going to be the same. If you want to do what Evan did, he just fancied up the first hit. So Evan's essentially laying as a partial bar on the 3rd fret, strings 1 and 2, add the middle back to the 5th fret of string 3, and you can hammer on that first hit. But the rest of it, 1, 2, and E, the rest of it is identical to the previous bar. Okay, so same rhythm. That's if you want to jazz it up like Evan. If you want to make it easier, just do the first hit as a quarter. 1, 2, and E, Okay, so that'll make it a lot easier to play. But it's up to you. They both sound the same. It's just a tiny little, it's like putting a dash of salt on food. You know, it's not going to make a huge difference, just a little. But if I backtrack and I try those two together, I have... Right, and I went for the easy approach because I'm getting a little tired right now and lazy, so I went for the easy approach. But if you look at the tail end of 26, back to 6, look at 27, same rhythm. And then if we look at 28, we have F7. And that's going to end it for this lesson. So F7, just lay flat on 5, middle's on 6. So we've got 1 and 2 E and. So bop bop. Okay, so strum, pluck, slap, double stop, string 3. Bop bop. So really easy. 1 and 2 E and 3. Okay, and then you're just ending back on C5. This first hit, that's where our part 2 lesson is going to start. Which starts on that cool little vamp. So before we get ahead of ourselves, backtracking for this last part sounds like this. So I'm going to play from the end of 24 to the end of 28. So that'll be the last little chunk for this first theme. Now, this has been a huge amount of music to tackle. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to go ahead and listen to Evan play through the entire intro plus theme 1, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap up this lesson. But here's what everything we've learned so far sounds like. Alright guys, so that's going to be everything for our part 1 lesson. So I think it's needless to say that we tackled a ton of music in theme 1. And theme 2, which is going to be taught in the part 2 lesson, has a ton of music to tackle as well. Now my approach for this lesson was to do kind of a hybrid of play along but also overview. An overview seemed a lot more appropriate for when the measures became really tricky because some of them were very hard to play. When you have crazy amounts of movement and crazy syncopated rhythms, and you add that swung feel to it, it's a doozy at times. And so my suggestion for you as you continue to practice this is to take advantage of this on-screen tab viewer. You can literally just take what I just played right there, just take that couple bars, you can highlight them, you can loop those sections, you can slow it down to any speed, you can even set the tab player to just Evan without the band, so you can just play along with him. And that's going to be the best way to get this stuff down because his playing will act as a guide and you can slow it down to whatever speed you need. So if you need 30% speed, start there. It doesn't matter. Work it up from there. And that's going to be just the best way to get it down. You do it at what's comfortable for you. Now, I do want to give you guys a friendly reminder that if you did want to get the tabs to print to keep for your records, that was available at this link right here, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com, do a search for A Fifth of Beethoven. Also on that page was what we just talked about, the on-screen interactive tab viewer, plus you can download the jam track. So when you do get this tune down and you want to play along with the band, we're going to have 100%, 75%, and I think we'll have 50%. So I'll take a listen to how slow the tempo is. If it's playable, we can feel the beat, I'll upload a 50% speed as well. So guys, that's going to wrap up everything for this lesson. I hope you join me in the part 2 lesson, and until then, take care.